Okay, guys, we're gonna go ahead and get started here. So, hey everyone, just kicked off Apple Hacks, so hope everyone's excited for that. We're excited to see what projects you make. My name is Shivansh,
My name is Zuhair.
and today we're gonna be running the Intro to Python workshop. So Python is something we kind of, we usually do. We're kind of fascinated with it, so we're here to share it with you guys. So, a little bit about me. A little bit about me is my name is Shivansh. I'm from Toronto. I'm in grade 12 right now, and I have an interest in business, computer science, and just, grinding in school. So that's pretty much what I like to do in my spare time. I like to make music. I like to, play soccer. And yeah, what about you, Zaire?
My name is Zuhair. I also live in Toronto. I am currently also in grade 12, and like to, I have a passion in engineering, comp sci, and mathematics. And also, for fun, I basically just play sports, and yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's get right into Intro to Python, guys. Let's go.
So, introduction. Welcome to Python. And in this meeting, be going through this course step by step. So Python is a computer programming language often used to build websites and software, automate tasks, and analyze data. It's a general purpose language, not specialized for any specific problems, but also used to create various programs.
Python could also be utilized. It's mainly utilized in artificial intelligence. So if you are really, really interested in going towards that route, you can always start off with Python and develop using different libraries that are available. So in order to use Python, you could either use an IDE or an integrated development environment, or you can use online resources. So for today's workshop, for the sake of today's workshop, we'll be using onlinepython.com. And actually, um, let me send it in chat just so everybody can have access to this. Let me know if everyone can access this. Oh, thank you, Gloria, for the slides. So if anyone or everyone could access that link and just let me know in the chat if it works. Oh, that was a direct message. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you. Yeah, it is. It is. You're able to access it. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So usually the most popular IDE, again, integrated development environment. First of all, an IDE is basically an environment where it makes it efficient for a user to code. It has different libraries, different extensions which people could download. It comes straight with it, and it creates a very efficient way of coding. So VS Code is very, very popular. That's what a lot of people use. Personally, I use VS Code as well. But for today's sake, we'll be using onlinepython.com. So the Python syntax, let's start off with the Python syntax. Now, we want to, our goal is to output code or output something. And for today's intro, we'll be outputting stuff in the terminal. So the terminal right here is, this is where our code goes, and this is the terminal where it outputs the code. And that's what we want to, that's our kind of our goal today. And we're going to achieve that by understanding the syntax. Now, the Python syntax, we're gonna start with printing. We're gonna start with printing. Now, printing is pretty simple, and that follows through this type of syntax. We're gonna write print. It's a simple keyword, print, and then whatever you'd like to print. So say hello Apple Hacks. and then it'll print out right here, hello Apple Hacks. So it's a pretty simple syntax right here, and we'll be getting more complex as we go.
So now we're going to be getting into indentation. So indentation is known as the spaces that appear at the start of a code line. And we use this in Python as it's very significant, unlike other programming where it's like simply for aesthetics. And as for programmer, you decide how many to utilize. However, four is most the frequent amount, although there must be at least one. And I'll be handing it off to Shiv to demonstrate.
Now, when you use indentation, it's kind of for other languages, again, as Zuhair said, it's for aesthetics. But for Python, it actually means something. It actually means, okay, now in this area, now when we indent, this set of code belongs to this area. So if we can kind of, let's say, we'll get into this later, the variables. So x is equal to 12. Now, if this will be more complex ones that we can do in another workshop, possibly tomorrow or Sunday. Now, in this indentation right here, so if we're saying if x is equal to 12, now we indent here. It's an automatic indentation. And this means that we run this code that we type here, any sort of code, this will run according to this statement. And we'll kind of get into it more as we go. Yeah.
So next off, we'll be getting to variables. And variables are created when you assign or store a value into it. For instance, a variable form the instant value it's applied to it. And they don't have to be defined with a specific type. And once they've been set, they can even change types.
So we'll get into changing types later and types in general. But a variable we can say is we can assign it with anything. We can say anything could be a variable. Let's say apple, right? Let's say apple is a variable. And what do we want to assign it? We can assign it a number. We could assign a word to it. We can assign practically anything to it. So I want to say the word or the number 12. The number 12 will be associated with apple. So that just means that whatever we store in our variable, whatever we store in this variable is acting like it. So think of it in math, right? Say we say x is equal to a linear equation, 2x plus 1, right? Now, this x right here, or say like 2y plus 1, sorry. Now say this x right here, this x represents the equation, or it represents whatever is being stored in that variable. And now when we get to different circumstances where we have to use this equation, or in this case, the information stored in the variable, then that variable is used to represent it. So it becomes much simpler.
And then variables can also be assigned names given. So a variable can be given a more detailed name, such as age, car name, or total volume, or a short name like X and Y. However, there are rules for variables, as it cannot begin with a number. It must begin with a letter or underscore character. And it's limited to alphanumeric letters, such as A to Z or 0 to 9. And variable names are case sensitive.
Zuhair?
Variables can also be assigned multiple values. For instance, it can be assigned many values to multiple variables. For instance, Python enables you to set several variables in a single line. Then there's a one value to multiple variables, when it can have the same value assigned to them in a single line. And then it can also unpack a collection where Python gives you the ability to extract values from lists and other collections and store them in variables.
Awesome. So let's demonstrate this right here. Let's demonstrate this first one right here. We can assign multiple values to multiple variables. So it's not just limited to x is equal to 12, y is equal to 13, and then z is equal to 14, right? We don't have to limit it to that. So if we say print x, right? Well, it'll print out 12, but now you've just used 3 lines of code and it's not really, it's not efficient. It's not efficient. What we can rather do is, again, as it says right here, we can actually put that into a single line. We can write x, comma, y, comma, z, showing that it's now separated into 3 variables. Now we just have to follow that syntax. So say, again, 12, 13, 14, now we have to separate it in its respective order. 12 for representing the x, comma, 13 representing the y, comma, 14 representing the z. And now we can print anything we want. Say if we print out, if we want to get 13, what is that? It's y. We can say print y, and we get 13. So it'll kind of select which variable you really want, and it's more efficient as well. Now, what are data types? Now we kind of covered or we kind of said types in the beginning, but it didn't really make sense. Now, what are data types or types? In programming, data types is an important concept. Variables can store a variety of data types, and different types can have distinct qualities. So there are different types such as strings, which are words. There are numeric types, so like integer, which is a whole number, a float, which is a decimal number. There could be a dictionary, which it has key, like a regular dictionary, a word and its definition. So a key and its value, right? A Boolean value, which is either true, false. And we'll kind of get into that more, demonstrate that. So how can we set this type? How can we set this type? Now, when we assign something to a variable, when we assign a value to a variable, that will automatically be set with a data type. So in this case right here, we see right here, if we assign x as, a string, a word, which is also wrapped by quotations, either single or double. In this case, we'll use double here. If we said x is Apple Hacks, Python will automatically set that variable or set the variable's type to whatever you have written. So in this case, x is equal to Apple Hacks. You have already set that it's already set that automatically to a string type. And say we wanted to do y is equal to 12. Now Python has automatically set that variable type to an integer. A float would be like, say, 13.0. So now we say z is equal to 13.0. Python will automatically set that type to a float because there's a decimal there. And we can actually get this data type, or we can see what we're kind of using with, or what we're kind of working with the function type. So when we print, when we say, let's print x, and we'll see right here that we get Apple Hacks, a regular string or a word. Now, what if we're kind of confused and we wanted to see, well, what kind of value is that? What kind of value is that? So we can use this function right here to say, let's print the type of x. And when we do that, it'll output this right here. And it'll say class, it's type class, and it's short form of what it stands for. So for str, it stands for string. And when we go back here, you can see str string, say int stands for integer. So let's kind of demonstrate that right here. X is equal to 12. Let's get the type of x. I want to see what kind of number this is. Oh, sorry. Let's see what kind of class is this, and you can see right here we've outputted that the class is actually an integer. What if it was 12.0? Now you see the class has changed because it was a decimal number. It changes to a float. The difference between the integer and a float is the integer, again, is a whole number, and a float is a decimal number. Now, we can, if we're not really sure, if we're not sure in some circumstances with what type is being set by Python. So say you have trust issues. Say you have trust issues and you see that x is equal to 12 right here. Now, you kind of don't trust Python. You kind of don't trust Python with you know, what it's setting for you. Now, just in case you want to make sure 12 is an integer. So we can actually set the data type manually, and we can say int integer 2, right? As in this example right here. So x is equal to integer 20, and it'll manually set the data type. So right here, we can print, print the type of x, and we can run that to get, again, an integer. Now, let's say conversions. What if you wanted to convert this this integer into a float? What if you wanted to convert this this whole number into a decimal number? So 2 to maybe 2.0. For whatever reason, maybe a project, maybe a calculator, who knows? We can manually set this as well to convert it. So yeah, x is float 2. You'll see that you've updated the class. It's from an integer to a float. And when we actually print x, we actually convert it to 2.0 and not just 2. If this was an integer right here, again, going back, you would get 2 as a whole integer. But then if we want to convert it to a float, which is a decimal, you get 2.0. So you can, there's a method of manually setting the type, which we've just done, or that could be used in conversions. Otherwise, you can use the automatic way by Python itself. Now, basic operators. Now, if we're getting kind of mathematical here, we want to learn how to maybe add stuff, subtract stuff in Python. Maybe make a little calculator right here. So in Python, there's actually many operators. We're actually running out of time. So there's a lot of operators, which is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, which is very straightforward with the signs itself. Modulus, which is a percentage, returns the remainders of the values. Exponentiation is exponents, so a double asterisk, and floor division returns the whole value of the digit that you're dividing. So we can demonstrate that right here. Say x is equal to 2, y is equal to 3. Now let's add these to get x plus print x plus y. And using this operator right here, we can kind of get an answer of 5 again. So let's say if we wanted to multiply this, we should get 6. 2 times 3 is 6. We get 6 right here. It's pretty straightforward. And the input functions. Now, what if you don't want the machine to just, you have to always go into the machine. You have to always update what number you want or what value. What if you could just get the user's input? Well, we can actually do this using the input function. We can do this using the input function. So say right here, we didn't want x or y to be 2 or 3 set, but we wanted the user's input. We wanted to see what the user would say, what the user wants to add. Instead, we can write input. That's it, using the input function, input, with 2 brackets right here. Now, it's kind of a little bit complex here, where a normal input would just store like mainly strings, but if we want to specify for, say, numbers, so whole numbers that we're adding with right now, we would surround this input function with an integer. And it's kind of, again, setting the type, right? Manually setting the type. So we're setting this to an integer type of input, an integer type of input we're setting. So in this case right here, x plus y. Now, in this code, it's saying x is the user's input, but we will convert that to an integer, or it's an integer type of input. y is the same thing, and now we are going to print out x plus y. So whatever the user provided, x plus y. So there will be a space for us to type something. So say 2, and now we can type something else, say 9, and it'll output the addition 11 right there. Now let's get a little more fancy. Let's get a little more fancy where, well, you don't know if you have to type or not. I don't know if I have to type or not right now. I don't know if I have to type or not. It's not showing me, it's not directing me. So let's get a little fancy here. In the input section, it's actually going to await. It's actually going to await for the user input. You can just provide a bit of text here. So inside the input function, inside of those brackets, you can actually write. You can actually write a message. You can write a message. So say, please enter a number. And it'll output the text, but it'll still wait for the value. So you see right here, please enter a number. It'll wait for your value too. And we can do the same thing right here with, we can do the same thing right here with the second one. Please enter the y number, and please the x number, yeah? And when we print x plus y, it should output the value, or we can say x times y. Let's do x times y now. So let's see, please enter the x number, say 3. Please enter the y number, we'll say 10. And we should get an output of 3 times 10, which is 30. And it'll output 30 there for you.
So that's going to be it for this meeting. I hope you learned something new about Python. And yeah.
So this was the very basics of Python. We may host a workshop tomorrow or Sunday as well, going more in depth. But that's the very basics of how to kind of work around Python and the basis for practically everything. So we don't have much time left. So again, thank you so much for joining. And if you really want, if you hope to see another one, please let us know in the chat. Let us know in the chat or in the Discord general chat, and we'll see you guys later. Thank you, Tamara. Thank you.
Thank you.